As you think about your 24 years of being a father, can you think of a book that shaped you at all or shifted your perspective, had impact on the way that you lead?
So we read a ton, and I'm going to blank on all the names, but there were some really good books. The one that I think resonates probably the most with me, that is jumping right into my head, is a book called The Gift of Failure.
Hmm.
It really made an impact because, right, I think the parent's natural instinct is to, and I've heard all these different terminologies, whether it's snowplow parenting or helicopter parenting or all these different things where they don't want their, son or daughter to have any sort of hiccups or challenges or issues, and they all want to be winners, and we get participation trophies and whatever it may be. And it really was talking about, failing is a gift and it is a process, and it's how you respond from failing that basically really makes your character. And it has a whole section on grit, which is something that's really tough to teach, but it's something you can at least communicate on. And so that really made a difference to me because obviously I wanted my kids to win every soccer tournament and every this and that. And the reality is they probably grew and learned more from the less successful experiences than they do the successful ones. And so, that one stands out at me for some reason, but that one is one. And I've looked at that for my own personal component. I struggle with, the 4 groups we lost last year, not the 65 that we wrote.
Right. Right.
Even though 4 of them were out of my control because they got acquired by a bigger company and we didn't do anything wrong. And so I think focusing, but not dwelling on, but focusing, learning, adapting, and then moving forward is a huge part. And so that's what we try to teach our kids. And we joke, none of our kids got scholarships to college for any of their athletic endeavors. And that's okay. It's okay to be okay, just average. We don't have to be superstars. And did you have fun? Did you get the benefits of group sports, of team leadership, success, failure, bonding? Then it was a win, even if you didn't win every game.
Okay, so this idea of failure, if you kind of gave an example for high school, and if another idea comes up from how you let your kid fail in high school, let me know. The next question to kind of go along with that is, as you see the next 5 years of like college, starting a business, whatever it is they might want to do, what's your philosophy on like you're in a position to help them? Have you thought about, it's tough, right? I mean, I don't know. Like we were on free cheese and milk when we had the twins 16 years ago, right? So I was just getting in this business and we were broke. And now we live in Hawaii and our business is in California. It's like very different. So there's a different level of means to be able to support the kid. And so you want to find the balance of supporting them while also letting them earn some grit on their own. So like an example for us right now, we have our first kid in college. She got some minor scholarships, nothing for sports or anything. So, you're wooey and things like that. So for every dollar she pays for college, we'll match her dollar for dollar. So that's kind of the deal, right? And so she's almost with her second year done, college, no debt, right? Which is awesome. So is there anything that you and your wife have kind of leaned into as here's how we want to show up for the kids in like this early young adult stage where we want tension, but we want to also help them?
So we've done a couple different things along those lines. Everything from our estate planning component, which we've communicated to them, they don't get a lump sum, right? They've got to have certain accomplishments, graduate college, start a business, different things, and it's paid. And heaven forbid it's applicable, it's paid out over time, right? We all have heard about that. 20-year-old that gets $1 million life insurance policy. Next thing you know, they're buying cars and they're dropping out of college or high school or whatever, and they're just making mistakes. So that's one. That's kind of on, the over planning kind of component. But my wife and I talk about this regularly. Our kids will probably, and our oldest is a great example. He's going to have the income to be able to afford something in the future from a house standpoint, whether it's on his own or a partner. But the reality is not many 20-somethings have enough money for the down payment on its own. So selfishly, assuming, it's going to be hopefully in somewhat close proximity to our San Diego home, we would likely do some sort of assistance, whether that's a matching program or something, because to us, family is everything, right? So like if he has the choice, like if in his mind, and I don't think he's quite at that point, but when and if he gets to it, if they get to the point, because the media kind of makes it sound like it's unaffordable to live in California, and it is expensive. So I don't, doubt that. But if there's something we can do to get them over that hump to keep them close, we would absolutely participate in that. And so I think it'll be different for each kid, but that is something that we have talked about, because I don't want that to be self-defeating, right? Like they have the income, they've got this, they're doing all the right things, but they still can't afford to buy a condo or something. Then we're going to help them in some way. And we don't know what that is. It'll probably be different for each one, because they may have 3 different complete goals. But anyway, so stuff like that is stuff that we would try to knock down. And I don't look at it as a loan. I don't want to make it sound like that, because I don't want to, put kids in debt and, have an anchor that he's going to be, chasing them around for the next 20 years. But if it's something that we can participate in together and they're doing all the right things, and we have the ability to help come up with a down payment or part of a down payment or something along those lines, I think my wife and I would be very open to that. And selfishly, it's going to hopefully keep them close.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are similar thoughts, and I'm starting to pay attention to some different like podcasters and thought leaders in this space, especially around family. Like in some regard, I think it's funny. We were sitting around the table the other night talking about the culture of America. Like, what is our culture when you compare it to others? And like one of the things that seems to pop up is this individualism. And some of the issue with individualism is this like idea around just independence. Like I need to move out at 18 and I need to do everything on my own. But then you're like looking at this 30, 40-year-old who still has college debt, who is struggling to buy a house. And it's like the way that you look at a family that has kind of like built legacy, they're working together to establish, not just starting fresh every 20 years, you're starting fresh. That's impossible.
Right.
It's not impossible. It's just a struggle, so we're starting to have these conversations with our kids. Like, hey, if you need a year in between, like if you're not just waking up at 11 and pissing off the day, like we want to be able to have space for you if you want to gain a skill or start a business or start your family, or like we want to be a part of those. So we're starting to have those conversations. And frankly, I wish we would have started having them sooner. I do think living in Hawaii has helped, because there's a huge family essence here of like families working together and living together, et cetera. And some of that's out of necessity.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting because my middle son, who is a senior in college, and, he's in the computer science, management, information systems kind of major, and that's his area of specialty. He came to us and he had done some spreadsheets and this and that with his income trajectory. And he thought he was going to have to move out of state or stay in Texas or move to Dallas or something like that. We're like, well, that's an option. But the reality is like, maybe it's not too far off here. Let's look at some California numbers. And again, we're not trying to coerce him into staying in California. We're just trying to open up his horizons to not just lock in, because that seems like the only economic way.
Right.
And we actually modified it, and it really was not that much different. There were, definitely things that were cheaper in Texas in his case versus California. But then there were other things in California, believe it or not, that were cheaper or similar. And so it wasn't a huge delta. But that was something we just kind of, oh, hey, here's some other thoughts and let's think this through or talk it out. And now I think he's anticipating graduating in May, and then we'll probably move back to somewhere in California. His tech space probably will take him to Silicon Valley, it appears, but at least that's California.
Yeah. And then it's like when you talk, you got 3 kids, I got 5 kids, they're most likely going to get married. They're most likely going to have kids. It would be nice to not just see my grandkids twice a year, which you and I, it's like, I'm not going to force my kids to live near me, but I would at least like to start having those conversations about, you got to do life with somebody. Why not do it with your siblings? Why not do it where you're going to have good support? 100%. And support is everything. When you have a family, you need support, not just financially, but time, energy,